Are people born gay, and what on earth does science have to say about this? That's the question I'd like to dive into today. My name is Brett Silford, pastor at the Table, a church in Sac City, Texas, and this is Table Talk, where each week I unpack ideas and insights from Christian theology and spirituality that help you become a more thoughtful, calm, and just a wonderful human being. So we are in part 6 of my series titled Why I'm a Gay Affirming Christian, and so let's go ahead and jump into our topic for today. Alright, so I want to begin with a quote from the American Psychological Association in its article titled Sexual Orientation and Homosexuality. It was published in August of 2017. And I quote, "There is no consensus among scientists about the exact reasons that an individual develops a heterosexual, bisexual, gay, or lesbian orientation. Although much research has examined the possible genetic, hormonal, developmental, social, and cultural influences on sexual orientation, no findings have emerged that permit scientists to conclude that sexual orientation is determined by any particular factor or factors. Many think that nature and nurture both play complex roles. Most people experience little or no sense of choice about their sexual orientation." Okay, so the reason I like this quote is that it draws out the fact that while scientists have learned quite a bit over the years about sexual orientation, it's true that it's basically far from some sort of like closed case. For example, we used to think that genes basically determined everything about a person. Like I'm thinking 20, 30 years ago. So many scientists were looking for the gay gene. But what scientists have learned is that it's not at all that simple because of something called epigenetics. Epigenetics is basically the science or the study of the environment and its impact on genes themselves. For example, you may have genes that would make you statistically more likely to develop various forms of cancer. However, if you live a healthy life with plenty of exercise and a good diet, it's very possible that the environment of your body will never actually turn those genes on, sort of activate them. In other words, genes are not what we thought they were 30 years ago. They are not your destiny. And that fact has played a major role in people who study same-gender sexuality, because now, all of a sudden, we realize, it's not as simple as pointing to like the 1 or the 2 or the 3 gay genes that determine someone's sexual orientation. Now, this is key though, not because genetic influences don't exist. We know that they do, but we realize now that environment plays a major role in how those genes function and whether they get turned off or on. All right, now, when folks hear the language of environment, they immediately jump to the whole nature-nurture debate, and they say, oh, okay, I get it. By environment, you mean how a gay person was raised. So if you're gay, you probably had a smothering mother or an incredibly distant or abusive father. That's environment. Not so much. Actually, there's not really any great data pointing out that something like, parenting contributes to people's sexual orientation. Instead, authors Dr. Glenn Wilson and Dr. Kwasi Rahman, in their book, Born Gay, The Psychobiology of Sexual Orientation, point to the fact that numerous studies done in the last 50 years point to genetic and hormonal influences that combine to powerfully influence a person's sexual orientation. For example, in their review of the literature on this topic, Wilson and Rahman point out that as a male, your chances of being born gay rise substantially, 33% for every male that has previously inhabited your mother's womb. In other words, if you're the firstborn son, then statistically you have a 2% chance of being born gay. If you're the 6th son, it's hard to say, 6th son, then you have a 6% chance of being gay. Now, that may not sound like a lot, from 2% to 6%, but honestly, if you think about it, your odds just tripled. Now, you say, well, perhaps, that's because of, the impact of having a lot of brothers. Maybe the 6th son is, more likely to be bullied or something. However, one study actually looked into this, and they found that a man's chances increased even if he was raised apart from his older brothers. Similarly, the trend did not hold true in families where there were a number of adopted younger brothers. That would seem to point to something about the environment of a mother's womb in terms of influencing sexual orientation. Okay, so why exactly is this? Honestly, scientists don't yet know for sure. But at this point, it looks to have something to do with the fact that when a woman gets pregnant with her first boy, that a certain type of protein is released into her bloodstream. And then her body then develops antibodies against that protein, which, through a complex process, can then later cross the placental barrier and influence the brain development of a developing male fetus. Okay, so that's just one set of studies. Another set of studies show a very strong correlation between very young boys who want to play with dolls and really young girls who want to, play football and act wild and wrestle. And that they do in fact have extremely high rates of same-sex attraction later in life. Now, this is not, of course, to say that literally every boy who plays with dolls or every girl who wants to play football or something, ends up being gay, but simply that statistically speaking, it's absolutely correlated. Now, this of course makes a lot of sense and lines up perfectly with the testimonies of most gay and lesbian people who they tended to know, right? If you've talked with them, they tend to know from a relatively young age that they were, in fact, different. Again, does that mean literally every gay person, that's their story? No, of course not. It's just that statistically, it does seem to be correlated. All right, finally, one other point that I think seems really relevant in this conversation is the terrible failure rates of gay conversion, or as it's sometimes known, reparative therapy. In 2007, so this is quite a while ago, 13 years ago, a task force of the American Psychological Association undertook a thorough review of the existing research on the efficacy and effectiveness of conversion therapy. And their report found that there was very little methodologically sound research on sexual orientation change efforts. In that, quote, the results of scientifically valid research indicate that it is unlikely that individuals will be able to reduce same-sex attractions or increase other sexual attractions through sexual orientation change efforts. Now, notably in the evangelical Christian wing of the world, the ministry known as Exodus, this was the single largest Christian reparative therapy center in the U.S., shut down in 2013 because its leader, Alan Chambers, basically admitted that, in short, it didn't work. Co-founder Michael Bussey, he left Exodus in 1979, and he later admitted, this is a quote from him, "I never saw one of our members or other Exodus leaders or other Exodus members become heterosexual. So deep down," he said, "I knew that it wasn't true." Now, what this shows is that regardless of where exactly scientists sort of end up falling as far as the whole nature-nurture debate in the coming years, the ability for LGBTQ people to, as some folks crudely put it, pray the gay away, this is not a viable option. And in fact, reparative therapy can be quite dangerous because it often leads to feelings of self-loathing, increased rates of depression, and even increased rates of suicide. So all that to say, although there's a lot of research that needs to be done, the last 40 to 50 years of research seems to be pointing much more strongly in the direction of nature when it comes to the development of someone's sexual orientation. However, that's not to rule out the fact that environment, social convention may well play a part in the process. So if you'd like more info on this topic, I highly encourage you to grab Wilson and Rahman's book, Born Gay. It's an excellent one on this topic. So that is all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, comment, and subscribe you can go subscribe on YouTube by going there and searching Brett Sulfur Table Talk, or pretty much anywhere podcasts are offered. I'm there. as well. So much love. Y'all have a great week. Grace and peace.